look at is going to be your social studies book. This is your social studies. This is what it looks like. And we're going to be talking about people of the plains. We should have two people who are doing posters on the Kiowa. I have two people, I think, who chose that. By the way, don't worry about the posters. Maybe what we can do is after the vacation, you can send pictures of the poster to however it works on your dojo or otherwise, and then maybe here again, if I can communicate with you through the computer, maybe even on the phone, you could tell me in a phone call, what your poster is about. But we could work on that later. I mean, don't worry too much about it, because I know maybe you're not going out to the stores. But I want you to just do something very simple. You can, for 50 cents, you can just get we call it oak tag, which is just a big piece of cardstock paper. Some of you have used it when you did other projects for Miss Tiffany. By the way, she called and she wishes you well and happiness, and she wants everybody to be healthy and safe. All right, we're going to be doing lesson 53, which is on page 102 in your social studies book, 102. Let me write that down for you. Give you time to look at it. That's 102. It's called The People of the Plains. I have mentioned about these people of the plains. If you look if you have your workbook with you, it shows you a picture of the United States and some of the different tribes and where they live. The teepee in the middle would be the Kiowa, and this is where they would live in this part of the country, which would be maybe the Dakotas, Kansas, Nebraska. They live on the plains. The plains are grasslands. There are no mountains. The land is flat, and it is good for grazing. It is good for cattle. Remember, we talked about in the phonics about the cowboys taking the cattle out on the range. And it's also good for another kind of animal that was found there that was very, very important to the Kiowa people. And we also see the Pueblo Indians, and that's in the southwest, in the areas where there's desert, like Arizona, New Mexico. And then we have the people up north, which would be maybe the Inuits who lived off of the coast. And you could see the different types of houses, and you'll be able to color it in. Okay, so this is on workbook page 95, and you'll probably be able to do it. It's a nice coloring exercise for you to do. Well, anyway, we know that the meaning of a tribe are all the family members who live together and all their relatives. I mean, we're talking about everybody in the tribe is related to each other. Just think about the 12 tribes of Israel. They were all related to each other, and those tribes grew to be thousands and 10,000s of Israelites. But there were 12 of them out of the 12 sons of Jacob. So the Indian tribes are the same way. One tribe or one family could develop into several thousand people, but they were all related to each other one way or the other. And they all lived and followed the same customs. Okay, we're going to start reading, if you would follow along with me. We're going to be talking about them. I want you to look at the picture. I want you to see the picture of these two Indians on the horses. They are hunters. And what do you notice in the background? There are three animals that are ready to be attacked by the Kiowas. Those are buffalo, and that is the type of animal that was roaming the range, so to speak. Range is the plains where the animals grazed. Now, I want you to know that horses were not here in the United States or in the continent of North America until the Spanish and the French and the English brought them over. And some of them, of course, ran wild, and they also turned into herds of horses. And there's still horses out there on the range that run free, making ready to be taken by the cowboys. Well, anyway, you can see that they're riding the horses, and you notice that they don't have too much in the way of a saddle like the cowboy does, or the stirrups that the cowboy has for his feet. They're pretty much bareback, which is kind of amazing. And these grassy plains, as I said, are in the middle of America. And if you start reading with me, it says some Native Americans lived on the grassy plains in the middle of North America. One of these tribes was the Kiowa. The Kiowa men were hunters. They hunted the buffalo that grazed. Grazed means ate the grass. They took their time. They weren't fed. They ate by themselves, unbothered by anybody else. I mean, they took their time. As they ate the grass, they would move onward. The Kiowa people ate buffalo meat. They moved often following the buffalo herd. Since they depended upon the buffalo so much, they traveled with them. As the grass was eaten up, the buffalo herds would move on, and the Kiowa people would follow them. And, riding their horses was so much better than running after these animals. And they became very good horseback riders, especially, as you see, they don't even have a saddle to hold them in. They had to be able to really hold on as they ran after the buffalo. Now, if you look at page 103, you'll see how could they follow these buffalo? Didn't they live in permanent houses made out of wood, made out of stone? They couldn't pack up and leave, or did they just go back out for the day and then come back? No, they had to follow the herds, and the herds went, and they had to be as close to them as possible. There was no home to come back to, so what they did was they traveled in tents. They made tents. The Kiowa women cared for children. I'm on page 103. They cooked and they kept the homes. They always kept a fire going. And Kiowa homes needed, of course, to be easy to move. Each Kiowa family set up wooden poles in a cone shape. They covered the poles with buffalo hides, and the hides kept out the cold and the rain. The Kiowa painted animals and other pictures on the hides. These homes are called teepees. So just like the Israelites, when they were fleeing the Egyptians and they were on their way to Canaan, they had tents. They couldn't build a permanent home because they had to get to the promised land. They did not have tents like this. They had tents that looked more like a tent today, which would have more of a roof and more sides. And even their temple that they had was a tent. Remember, I said in the Ark of the Covenant was not in a temple, but it was in a tent, a different type. And if you want to make a tent, a teepee, you can get a piece of hard cardstock and make sort of a semicircle. But before you cut out everything, what you could do is just decorate it. The Indians would decorate their teepees with stories of their adventures, maybe how a young boy became a man by killing his first buffalo, and they would paint the picture. Here you have pictures of birds, and then a dog maybe chasing another animal. All of this might have represented some kind of a story, a family story, a legend of the people, and they painted it so that their houses would be decorated. And then you make a slit, and you join you join the house together, and you can make a little flap here, and even a little flap on the top, because, and then if you have the coffee stirrers at home, you could stick that in as the wooden poles. Now remember, they had to keep an opening on the top because they would have a fire on the inside if the weather was cold, and they would have to let out the smoke. So you can make your own little tent. Okay, now I want to go over with you that the buffalo was the life support of the Kiowa. We know that the Indians used very few buffalo. They did not kill as much, as they wanted. Basically, they preserved the ecology of the area. They killed only what they needed. Unfortunately, in the late 1800s, when the railroads went across the United States, we had buffalo hunters from the east who thought it was a great sport to just shoot the buffalo at random, not caring how many they shot and killed. And there was a big adventure for them, like hunting parties, which was very disturbing to the Kiowa people because this animal was very, very sacred or holy to them because it supplied their life. And you'll find exactly what they used it for. The buffalo, of course, it was the meat that they ate. The skins were used to make their clothing and their shoes. Even their teepees were made out of the skins of buffalo, so they were kept very warm in the wintertime. They made tools out of the bones of the buffalo, and other weapons, even toys for the children. They would make little, maybe drums. They made religious objects for them. So this was very, very important. And you will have in your workbook, you'll have a picture of all the different products that the buffalo was used for. And believe it or not, if you go to some Publix supermarkets, you will find buffalo meat or bison. That was another word that they used for meat, for the buffalo. And we do have buffalo meat, which is, believe it or not, as big and as heavy as the animal is, has very little fat. It's a little bit more expensive than regular chopped meat, but we can purchase it. Fortunately, the buffalo herds have come back, and they are now prospering. People have buffalo ranches to preserve the buffalo. When I was out in Ohio, I saw a buffalo ranch. Seems a little strange because buffalo are usually not found in Ohio, but there's kind of reservation for them. But anyway, this is one of your assignments that you will do pages 102 to 103 in the workbook, where you will look at the homes of 3 different tribes, and you'll color it, and also what the buffalo gave the Kiowa people. Remember, they preserved the buffalo herds. They did not destroy them as the, quote, white man did when he came across the plains.